Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Email Delivery B2B. Today, doing our presentation is Kirsty Esparza, our Delivery Director. You might have heard her on previous webinars. We usually do a couple of delivery webinars a year so that Kirsty can keep you guys up to date on what's going on. So this is going to be a fun one because we're going to be talking about B2B, which is a little bit different than any other kind of delivery that we do. As with most of our webinars, this one is being recorded, so you'll be able to reference this later. And we will do Q&A at the end. So if you think of questions along the way, and I imagine that you already have some or some will come up while you're watching this, go ahead and type those into the box that you see on your GoToWebinar window, and we'll be happy to answer those at the end of the webinar. So I am going to hand this over to Kirsty.
Thank you, Jill. And again, I encourage you to put the questions in because I know that a lot of you probably came to this webinar with specific B2B delivery questions, and so I purposely left a lot of time at the end for us to get to those, so don't be shy. Again, welcome. I just wanted to say thank you for attending. At Vertical Response, we take delivery very seriously. We have a team dedicated to ensuring our anti-spam policies are enforced, and this team monitors the real-time delivery success of your emails. They're looking for email networks who may be blocking or refusing mail from our customers. We have all the required and recommended mechanisms in place so that receiving networks know that it's VR sending the mail so that it can be trusted. We have whitelisting and feedback loop partnerships with the ISPs and email networks that offer them. These feedback loop partnerships enable us to remove the contacts from your list that hit that spam or junk button that you might see in your email interface. Our team also processes what we call delivery escalations. And these are deliverability concerns that you, our customers, may be experiencing. From bulk boxed emails to your recipients not receiving the email at all. We'll review your concerns and work to resolve any that we can, or offer recommendations on actions you can take to ensure that your subscribers are as engaged as possible. So I want to just pause here. I've been tossing around a couple of weighty words, delivery and deliverability. What's the difference? One of my favorite bloggers, Laura Atkins from Word to the Wise, helped explain the difference between the two in a blog a little while back. Delivery is about what happens to the email. Does it have the necessary components to be successfully handed off to the receiving network and delivered? Deliverability is the delivery potential of a particular email. It is what marketers, commercial senders, and ESPs are concerned about. Deliverability is more than just about can this email be delivered. It is the sum of the total factors that play into email marketing, from relevance, structure, content, and sending reputation. So when thinking about deliverability improvements that you can make, remember that deliverability is not just the email, but the whole process from email address acquisition through purchase. So when reviewing a VR customer's account to address an escalation to the delivery team, we review the whole process that's used to acquire your contacts and then how that relationship with your subscriber is maintained over time. Through delivery escalations, we see issues that range from opt-in permission practices, problems meeting subscriber expectations of frequency and content, to problematic business practices or business reputation based on actions happening outside of Vertical Response. All of these can impact the user's deliverability or their ability to deliver their content to the recipient's inbox over time. VR provides a solid foundation that sets our users up for the best delivery possible, maintaining a strong sending infrastructure that's fully authenticated with domain keys and DKIM and SPF and sender ID. We're exploring right now the newest authentication mechanism of DMARC, and we're hoping to implement that in the next few months. We process bounces, replies, and complaints in compliance with industry best practices. Deliverability is up to you, the marketer, based on how you build and maintain the marketing relationship and how you maintain your brand in the marketplace. So what are some of the most common reasons that we see escalations from customers? These escalations can be about bulk boxing, like I mentioned, blocking, or just outright non-engagement from your recipient base. The delivery team tackles each escalation case by case because each delivery escalation is unique. We have found the best strategy to avoid most effects from filtering is to deliver relevant messages to your subscribers. It all begins with permission. Some B2B marketers assume that they have permission to email customers and prospects because they've had a previous business relationship with them. And this is the minimum requirement under US regulations regarding email marketing, called canned spam. But many recipients see it differently. People are protective over their email inboxes and are not as welcoming to email from senders they did not specifically ask to hear from. At VR, we understand the different kind of marketing relationship that you have with subscribers who invite you into their inbox, and we require that all your contacts that you engage with in email have specifically opted into your email program. Ongoing engagement is the key to avoiding your emails delivered to the bulk folder or being blocked or not delivered at all. Email networks and filtering companies are tracking a growing list of behaviors to determine a subscriber's engagement with your email. Among some of these behaviors include, are your subscribers opening the message, clicking through links? Are they scrolling through the message to read it all? Are they enabling the images if their email client blocks those images by default? Are they adding your sender's email address to their online address book? Some of the negative behaviors that can hurt your ability to get that optimal inbox delivery include deleting the message immediately, reporting this message as spam, marking messages as read without opening, just ignoring the messages, or moving the messages to the trash without reading. I always recommend setting your subscriber expectations for what they will receive from you with a welcome message. This welcome message is your chance to outline the frequency and content of your engagement with your subscriber, and then honor those expectations and engage with your subscribers frequently enough that they don't forget that they subscribe to hear from you. So here's a little example of what I've been referring to. Here a customer was targeting a large number of addresses at one small business domain. After 29 of those attempted email sends, 29 of those emails bounced because the address no longer existed, and you can see here at the top the no such user. The bounces changed, and the receiving network started blocking mail. You can see it at the bottom, spam source blocked, because so many invalid addresses had been emailed. Their threshold for an acceptable number of invalid addresses, 29, really isn't that low or that high. I've seen B2B networks throw up blocks for much lower numbers. Purchasing email addresses or using lists of email addresses provided by third parties usually results in large numbers of email addresses at the same domain, which is why these list building methods aren't recommended. This scenario is also why I recommend engaging with your subscribers as soon as possible after they've given you your email address. Because email addresses have an abandonment rate of about 25 to 33% a year. With business domains, this rate is on the higher end. So engage with your subscribers quickly to avoid seeing higher bounce rates from addresses that no longer exist. But these concerns about bounces and engagements aren't the only thing that the delivery team helps our customers with. We also field a lot of questions about keyword filtering or spam trigger words. One of the salespeople here at VR asked that I specifically speak to this keyword filtering because it was a question that she saw a lot from customers. And she remembered in the new hire training I do for VR employees when I reviewed that nearly every word in the dictionary is a spam word at some time or another. Spam filtering is very dynamic and changes with the season based on what spam is circulating at the time. For example, during election season, words associated with the candidates at the time are often seen to be triggers. During tax season, the words shift to topics associated with tax preparations and refunds. While keyword filtering is on the decline within more sophisticated filtering networks employed by the top ISPs like Hotmail, Yahoo, and Gmail, smaller business domains may be using layers of filtering that do still include this level of filtering. Unfortunately, there isn't a clean list that I can point to say don't use these words, because the words do literally change all the time. But I encourage you to use what I call your human spam filter. How would you engage with that message if it was delivered to your inbox? Speaking specifically to subject lines, using the word free or sale or discount won't necessarily get your content filtered. Using all three might.
Well, and a great example of that is, as you said, during the holiday season, I don't know how many of you guys see this, I'm sure you all do, but free shipping is the number one subject line. And the word free doesn't necessarily get your email into the spam folder, because I got a whole bunch of them into my inbox with the word free in it. So it isn't just that one word.
Exactly, exactly. And it's not just punctuation. Using one exclamation point won't necessarily get your email bulk foldered, but again, using multiple might. Filters are always looking for a low ratio of text to punctuation, so just don't overdo that. Everything in moderation, as they say. I also recommend you don't use all caps in your subject lines as a way to try to make your email pop in the inbox. This can trigger filtering and can be interpreted as yelling at your subscribers, which is just kind of rude. And finally, don't try to use fancy speak or euphemisms to try to infer your meaning or try to shorten the meaning of shorten your sentence to get the biggest meaning. Even if well-intended, this fancy speak can cause filtering, because spam filters pick up on this technique. It's a trademark used by marketers selling those enhancement products. And I just went through a lot of don'ts, so sorry about that. Speaking to content in the email body, some of the same principles do apply though. Use moderation with punctuation and capitalism. And another thing to consider here is the balance of HTML to text. To explain, when you build your HTML using our graphical editors, you're building an HTML email. Filters are looking for a balance of that HTML to text in an email message. So by creating a text version of your graphical email, you're automatically creating the balance that the filters are looking for. And our application will do this for you automatically as the requirement of the email building process. So I advise you to pause and spend a few minutes reviewing that text version so that it looks as put together as your HTML version, because you never know who is reading your text version, and it's a very important part of your email to get it delivered. Next, consider who you're partnering with if you're sending email with other businesses. Each email address or link within the email carries its own reputation. So if your content includes the link belonging to another business, there could be a chance that that link could cause your email to be bulk foldered or blocked if it has been fingerprinted as having a bad reputation. But nothing is black and white in email delivery. What works for one marketer may not work for the other, so I always recommend testing your ideas. Maybe your audience would be more responsive to text-only campaigns because their business email network filters all email with HTML. I encourage you to use the VR application's A/B split tool to test different subject lines, short ones, long ones. Try different templates to see which seem to generate higher response rates. Try testing personalization if you have your subscriber's name. And be sure, as a B2B sender, that you're optimizing your content for mobile devices. All of our templates are tested to render on mobile devices, but as you use them, keep in mind that the average size of a smartphone, so keep that content concise. If you know your audience is likely viewing their email on their phones, then really test the content length and the different kinds of calls to action to see what's most effective with the audience. And finally, what is your product, and when are people likely to be engaged with your product? You may consider testing different times, different days to send your email. Do you sell pizza? Maybe a Friday afternoon email campaign would have a strong response when people are looking for an easy way out to avoid cooking dinner again. Are you an online retailer? Maybe a midday email when people are looking for a distraction or a little time to procrastinate, or they're on their lunch break and they actually have time to review their personal email. Might be the best time for you. If your product is for the business person, you may test different times to send based on when your decision maker will have time to see your email. Monday morning is probably not a good idea to send because your email is just part of the noise that they're clearing out to start their week. But later in the week, that business decision maker may be less busy and can review your email. But what does the real world look like out there? What are the products that businesses are using to protect their inbox? There are many filtering companies out there, and most B2B mailboxes have layers of these filters from different services. Microsoft's Forefront product uses 9 layers of filtering, from technical considerations to sender reputation to content filtering. Barracuda and Cloudmark both use different methods and technologies to fingerprint an email content that is associated with spam complaint. Once identified as spam, a fingerprint is stored and used to match future emails. We have seen these fingerprints be based on the full email content, or just on image names, on individual links within the email, or simply on a sentence within the body of the email. That's the investigation that threw me. Literally one
Wow.
sentence. So no matter what that sender changed, if they changed their template, it still was triggered by that sentence. Spam Assassin is an open source email filter. You can incorporate it into any of your products, and it has been incorporated into many other email filters as well, including Barracuda. Large ISPs layered into their own filtering, and many email networks use it as a standalone filter. This filter looks for known patterns associated with spam, including HTML to text ratio, excessive punctuation in all caps and subject lines. This is why I called those features out earlier. Another feature of Spam Assassin, which I don't want to forget to mention, is that this filter is looking for the salutation dear. Dear Jane, dear Joan, dear Bill. So when troubleshooting customers' delivery concerns to B2B domains specifically, one of the first things we look for is the structure of their email. Are they using this salutation? And then we recommend removing it. Postini, I wanted to save the best for last, is the filtering product that Google has incorporated into their product offering, specifically their Google Business Suite. It's not part of Gmail, but it does have an estimated more than 26 million users. We see a high rate of delivery concerns escalated to us having to do with this filter. But ironically, the number one issue is our customer not able to receive their own email after launch. And this is because of Postini's anti-phishing protection. Whitelisting, or adding the from address to your address book, will not bypass this level of filtering. And if you think this is happening, reach out to our support department. We can provide instructions for you to give to your IT or ops department to make the necessary adjustments so this won't happen moving forward.
I have to say, Postini is the one I hear most questions about when I do presentations, when I do webinars. People are always using Postini.
It is one of the most strict on the market, so
Yeah.
so we do see issues with that. But I'd like to start to wrap up the presentation by offering some best practices to keep in mind when targeting B2B audiences. I do always like to include a list of takeaways. I know that people are really looking for that. So I always recommend using the same name, from name, and email address in every campaign or campaign type to ensure that the recipient recognizes you as the email sender, and then this enables them to whitelist your email in their email program. Speaking of, remind your contact to add your from address to their address book or contact list to ensure the best ongoing delivery possible. I like to put this call to action in the welcome email, which I recommend, as well as in the pre-header part of the email message, that part right above where the graphical content starts. And not necessarily every time, maybe every other or every three, just a reminder. And the fact that it's not in every email, but maybe every other or every fourth, the eye won't get trained to ignore it. So it will be a reminder to your contacts to look for that. Keep your branding consistent with your other branding. Does your offline branding match your online branding match your storefront? You want your customers to recognize you in any marketing effort. Make sure you use A/B testing to find the right subject lines, image balance, content for your subscribers. I highly encourage being creative. You never know what may work, and a recommendation I make now may be completely inappropriate for your audience. So if you're curious about something, I encourage you to try it.
I encourage you to try it too.
Yeah. It's interesting to see some of the ideas our customers have that are successful.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage you wholeheartedly to go beyond following CAN-SPAM rules. CAN-SPAM is the bare minimum US requirement, but VR does have a higher standard. We require that every recipient have opted into your email. Test how emails will render in multiple email clients like Outlook. Lotus Notes if you think your recipients might be using that. Gmail, Hotmail, just so you know how things will look. Also test to see how they'll render on mobile phones. And then finally, integrate social media with email. VR recently acquired Roost. Roost enables small businesses to easily and quickly create, schedule, manage, and measure their social media marketing campaigns to different providers from one convenient dashboard. And we have seen that marketers, regardless of the audience type, B2C or B2B, are embracing social media and finding great ways to make their email messages more social. And your email audience is a great place to start leveraging social media by encouraging the sharing of email content and using your email messages to promote participation with your Twitter or your Facebook account. And for example, if your subscribers are choosing to opt out, provide another opportunity to stay in touch with your brand via social media sites. Your corporate blog content, tweets, or LinkedIn discussions related to your industries can be easily repurposed for your email newsletters. In addition, your social media accounts can be used to promote your email newsletter. So, in the end, the best delivery and deliverability is achieved regardless of the target audience when you understand your audience and give them what they want when they want it.
So we're going to start taking questions. One thing, I usually have a slide with resources, and I didn't do that in this deck, but just so you know, we do have some guides and some recorded webinars to help you with a lot of things that Kirsty talked about today. So if you go to our help site, help.verticalresponse.com, and click on webinars, we have a recorded webinar called How Not to Be Spam. I'm very clever with my titles. And it goes through examples of some of the things Kirsty talked about today. Words that you should try to avoid, or some of the words that can be an issue, the balance of HTML and text, a lot of the stuff she talked about today. So it's a specific webinar on the content of your email. There's also a recorded webinar on testing, and it talks about testing your subject lines, your content, your conversions, and keeping people engaged is something that we talk about a lot in our webinars too. So I would specifically recommend those two. There's also a webinar on creating emails for mobile phones so that your email works for mobile as well as for inbox delivery. And there are guides to go with all of those. So if you go to verticalresponse.com and click on resources, you'll see our guides, and we have a guide called Testing 123 to help you with testing. And then we have a couple of delivery guides, not specific to B2B, but we do have a couple of delivery guides, as well as a mobile phone guide. So if you'd rather read, we have that. If you'd rather listen to me talk, we have that. So with that, let's go ahead and I'll put the Q&A slide up. Start taking some questions. So some of these are long, so just hold on a second. Okay, you're saying the spam filtering companies are checking to see whether the subscribers are opening and how much the subscriber is looking at to determine whether it's spam. I know some people that hardly look at their boss's email and could be interpreted the same way. This seems odd. Please confirm this is what I heard.
That is what you've heard. And email delivery is definitely not black and white, but filtering companies do layer different questions, different requirements, different triggers into their product. So most internal filtering systems are going to not filter internal communication. So say I'm emailing Jill, it would internally to our vertical response addresses, it would take pretty egregious action for that email to be blocked from an internal communication. That I have to have a virus or something big would have to be going on, but something from the outside into your business network is going to be subject to higher levels of scrutiny.
Yeah, I have to say, when you were talking about some of the things that were counted as engagement or not engagement, I work here, obviously, at an email marketing company, and so when I'm looking at emails that I've subscribed to, I always make sure that I render the images,
Right.
Even if I don't get a chance to read the whole email, just so they know I am looking at it. They don't take me off their list, but sometimes I don't scroll through. I didn't know they were looking at that, and every now and then I get really busy, and so I just mark things as read so that I don't have like 50,000 things that I haven't read, but I haven't actually read. So it's interesting that those are some things that could be causing some issues if I stop getting emails.
Well, and this discussion about email engagement is an emerging discussion in email delivery. So a lot of these behaviors are being looked at and are being incorporated into reputation monitoring, sender reputation. They're not necessarily the be all and end all. There's still, are we authenticating. Have we been sending email for a long time, or is this the first email our company has ever sent? Vertical Response obviously has been in business over 10 years, so we have a track record that does help with our sending reputation.
Mm-hmm. How do you know if your email has been labeled as graylisted, and what can you do about that?
That's a good question. So a gray listing is one of those words that, again, is making a big splash in the email delivery world right now, because back in October, Hotmail introduced what they're calling their gray mail filtering. They've created a new category or folder for what they call gray mail newsletters and basically commercial email. They were finding that their Hotmail users were complaining about this commercial mail that their users may have opted into at a rate of 75% higher than real spam. It was one of their problems for their user base. So they've really tried to create new folders to address it. Gmail also, with their priority inbox, they're playing with the idea of gray mail or commercial mail having a lower priority in users' inboxes. My best recommendation for this is know your subscribers and engage with them. Change content based on specific types of subscribers. If you're retail, do you know the gender of your subscriber? You could target content to them based on gender. Are you, again, is your business across the map? Maybe you can target regionally with different kinds of messages. Pay attention to what users are opening and reading and clicking on, and then do more of that. Maybe your users are shifting more towards a social media platform to engage with your brand, so maybe you need to really kind of think about how you're engaging with them at all levels, from Facebook to LinkedIn to Twitter to email. Have it be a complementary package. So there's no black and white yes or no answer to how to avoid being gray listed. Make sure your subscribers are engaged. If you're finding that your response rates, your opens and clicks are going down, you may want to go through a program to isolate your non-responders over a period of time. So if, say, Jill hasn't engaged with your email in the past year, hasn't rendered the images, just as she said, she does that for the brand she's engaged with, she's probably not engaged, and you should pull her off that list for a little while and attempt to re-engage her. Isolate your non-responders and send them another email or two to bring them back into the responsive fray. And then if you can't, you may have to make the hard decision to not message Jill anymore because she's just not engaged with your brand anymore. So really it's narrowing in on those active readers.
Regarding testing, how small a sample is too small for a useful test? My typical campaign has about 300 contacts at 75 companies. So generally speaking, when you're talking about testing, the higher your sample, the better, because you're going to need to split your list. And the smaller your list gets, the less that the numbers and the responses are going to give you accurate information. Generally speaking, this is general, so don't freak out because it's bigger than your list. If you're going to do split testing, we usually say you need at least 1,000 addresses. But that doesn't mean that with your list of 300 that you can't do testing. It's just that your statistics might be a little bit off, because if you split your list and you have 150 on each list to do your testing, and then your typical open rate is like 20%, suddenly you're seeing that the number of people engaging in your email are going to be influencing a huge amount of what you're doing in your work, right? So, you have like 30 people who are deciding what everyone is going to be seeing. 60 people, whatever it is. I'm not good at math. So that's why normally to have statistically relevant information, you want to have at least 1,000. But I would still say, even with your list of 300, you can test and see what your recipients are more interested in opening for, like a subject line,
right,
or for your content. Also you're going to want to be smart about it as well, because again, your number is going to be a little bit lower. And then you had a follow-up question, which I think mostly Kirsty answered. Is there a way to know if a lower than usual response rate is because something got caught as spam versus just being uninteresting to the reader?
There is no hard and fast way. Actually, I'm going to go back. What you can do is your own seed listing, and this is something we do at Vertical Response on a broad level to monitor the reputation of our sending infrastructure is all of the mail from our, to Hotmail going into the bulk box from vertical response, or, are these sender by sender issues. So by seed listing, what I mean is sending to a set of addresses that you monitor. So maybe you're sending to your, something within your company. You can set up an address, just for that purpose, seed@company.com. Then you could have your Hotmail, your Gmail, your Comcast, some other email clients to send to, and then you can view and see whether the message was delivered to the junk folder or the inbox, and then see what's going on. So really the only way to get a view into where an email was delivered is to actually view where the email was delivered.
But I'd also say as well, if you got a lower than usual response rate, I would look at what you did with that email compared to what you have done in the past, because you should have a benchmark. If you've sent out at least a few emails, you'll have a benchmark of what your average open is, what your average click-through rate is. If you happen to have sent that email at a different time or a different day than you normally would, that might also be what's happening, is that you've hit the wrong time to be emailing your audience, or your subject line was something that just didn't get their attention when you sent it. So I would also just double check what it is that you've been sending, when you've been sending it, and see if it was just something that you had changed and your audience is just telling you that was way wrong.
The other idea that came to mind was check your domain reporting, and in vertical response in your.
That's my favorite report.
Mine too. In your email reporting, there's a tab that's by domain, so that you can see are your response rates dropped or zero or at a really low level at Hotmail or at example.com, and then if the response rates for one domain are zero and then everywhere else seem fine, then that could be an indication that something was caught in the spam folder.
And here we go. All of our business is B2B, and we find some of the vendor spam filters are using spam filtering that sometimes blocks our emails. How do we coach them on correcting this?
Well, if you are engaged directly with your customer at these, we can work with their IT department. So if you know that your customer at, acme.com is having difficulty getting your email, we would encourage you to send them our infrastructure information, our IP addresses, and maybe our domains that we send with, so that their IT department could whitelist those. And our support department has that information on hand and would be happy to share it with you. If you're continuing to have trouble and the whitelisting doesn't seem to be working, or the add to address book coaching recommendation doesn't seem to help the delivery, then that will be escalated to my department, and I have people on my team who will reach out to the postmaster or IT department for the company that you're having trouble delivering to, so that we can really kind of narrow in on what the problem is. Is it a content issue? Is it an issue with them receiving mail from vertical response? There are some businesses out there that do not want to receive email from email service providers because they want their business people to be doing business as opposed to reading commercial email. I know. So, but we have business senders like you who use us, and so we do have a team who can troubleshoot that specifically with the email network you're having trouble with.
Alrighty. So I am not seeing any other questions right now. Again, we do have lots of resources to help you with all of this. So again, we have recorded webinars and guides to help you, and you'll get a follow-up email that has a link to both of those as resources, so you'll be able to go and find that information. And this was recorded, so we will have this up on the webinar page on the help site next week, so you can access this information if you need to see it again. So thanks everyone. I hope you all have a great day, and thanks Kirsty.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Bye.